And thanks again, guys. It was amazing. And Rosa, you are the next one. Back to you. Thank you, guys.
Wow, what an amazing session, you know. I would stay here for more 3 hours. Congratulations
Me too.
to you all. Learning a lot. Now let's keep to the other session. It should be another great session. And I am welcoming now. Please stay, people who can stay. Don't miss this, because it is a great opportunity to share and to learn. And let me share here the card of the next presentations. I would like to know if Maggie, Juliana, and Sophia are on board. Are you there?
Yes.
Hi, Rosa.
Great. Oh, what a pleasure to be here with you. I'm just trying to igniting the meeting to make people comfortable, and wish you a good session. Good luck. Okay.
Rosa.
Okay, let me present myself. I am Rosa Alegria. I am Brazilian. I live in Brazil, São Paulo. I'm a futurist. I work for the core team, global team, the core team in the global team of Teach the Future. And I represent in Brazil the movement Teach the Future too. What's Teach the Future? Is a movement, global, non-profit NGO that works with futures literacy, okay? We promote futures literacy in the schools, curriculum. We teach teachers and we teach students. Remember that we are live on YouTube too, okay, this moment. So this session is hosted by Teach the Future and Young Voices Network. This is a version for the intergenerational talks. Teach the Future has created this version to listen more from youth people, and that's very important. Originally, the World Futures Day is being conducted for more than 10 years by the Millennium Project, a global movement, and I belong to the Millennium Project too. So welcome to a happy World Futures Day. It is a 24-hour of intergenerational conversations about the future, a space to involve young people in anticipating and influencing the future, both in and out of school. So that's great. Now let me introduce you to this amazing team that will talk to us and will teach us lots of things. First, the young facilitators, I'm sorry, okay, here. The topic is a very attractive and important, the civic participation of people for better futures. And we will listen from two cases that will be shared, that are cases from Medellin, that a wonderful city. I love Medellin, Medellin. Let me introduce you to the youth facilitator. Her name is Sofia Londono. I love your name. My granddaughter is called Sophia too. Sophia is 17-year-old, and last year she graduated from high school. Therefore, she is finding the path for her future. She's a really passionate and persistent person, and she puts all her energy in those things that she likes. Great. What she loves the most is to see happiness in people after she helped them, especially the vulnerable, as well as helping our planet that every day is more affected. Sophia is the founder of Impacto Community, in which she develops international projects and grows as a change maker. Wow, fascinating, Sophia. It's a pleasure and an honor to listen from you. Let me introduce...
Very much.
Now, let me introduce the two adults and incredible ladies here. First, Maggie Grayson. Maggie is an internationally recognized award-winning futurist and award-winning designer. She helps organizations and individuals imagine the future to make better decisions today and tomorrow. Maggie is passionate about helping museums to recognize their potential in helping the publics to become comfortable with complexity through futures work. Wow, what interesting activity, Maggie. She's a graduate of the Masters of Design in Strategic Foresight and Innovation at the Ontario College of Arts and Design University in Canada. Welcome, Maggie. So happy to have you here. And then let me introduce to the second adult presentation, Dr. Juliana Restrepo. Juliana Restrepo is a physicist, fiction author, and fascinated by science engagement. After completing her PhD in Paris, she worked as a professor and researcher focusing on open quantum systems. She's currently the director of science engagement at Parque Explora, Colombia. So, wow, what a richness of things to learn from you. So I ask you please to, before starting, to synthesize the description of the session, or if you want me to do that. You want me to do that? You prefer that I do that? There are 4 lines, yeah?
Sure,
Okay.
I'm happy to read out
Maggie can do it.
the
You
paragraph.
Maggie, just you go. So your English is much better than mine, okay? So I give you the floor to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rosa. It's lovely to meet you. I've heard your name so many times. In this session, 2 passionate female leaders in Colombia defend why they dedicate their efforts to help locals participate in co-creating better futures. Although it seems like an insurmountable challenge, find out why youth Sofia Londoño and Dr. Juliana Restrepo from Parque Explora think that civic participation is important in the global South. Are the Sustainable Development Goals and Inner Development Goals enough motivation for people to participate? Listening to their achievements in Medellin, one of the most transformed cities in the country, can help you to consider how you can achieve the SDGs and IDGs for the future of the planet and humanity. Rosa, can I throw it over to Sophia to introduce herself?
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Rosa already introduced me really well, but my name is Sophia, and I'm really, really glad to be here today. I hope you learn a lot of things from our panel, and most of it, I hope that you enjoy it. I don't know if, Juliana, maybe you want to say something else before we start.
Yes, I wanted to say hi. It's my first time in this day of conferences, in this panel, and I'm very happy to look at all the names and imagine where you guys are from, depending on your last names and everything. So I'm very happy to have like a global audience, and hopefully this will be just the beginning of talking about projects and doing things together. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, both of you.
Okay, are we going to share something in the screen? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing this and you can go, okay?
Thank you. Let me
Okay,
know.
so
Go ahead, Sophia.
I'm gonna share the screen now. Please tell me when you're able to see it.
Yep, there it is. So while you're getting set up, so that Juliana doesn't have to guess where you're from, could you put into the chat where you're located today? And if it's not the same place where you're from, put that in too. We would love to know. And later when we start to ask questions about how does this work where you are, you can again remind us where you're from, or also give us an example of some place that you haven't been to, which is great too. Through the course of this lively and interactive conversation, you're going to get to know the case studies here, but also we'd like to hear stories that are related to what Sophia and Juliana are going to be bringing up. And by the end, we want to make sure that we've got conversations during and after the panel of your similar experience. So this is how we would like you to participate. Ask questions. I will be watching in the chat and send questions over to Juliana or Sophia as we're talking. And that is enough from me.
Okay, great. Thank you, Maggie. So I'm going to start by sharing the first case study, but before I do that, please, if you have any suggestion, any question at any time, you can interrupt me, because since I'm sharing screen, it is kind of hard to see if you're raising your hand. So if you have anything to say, you can just turn on your mic. So yes, as Rosa said when she was introducing me, I'm the founder of Impacto Community, which would be the first case that we're going to show you today. So last year, in April of 2023, I founded, it wasn't a community at the beginning, it was just an Instagram account to raise awareness about different global problems that we have. But then I said, like, oh, let's take it a step forward, and let's not just raise awareness, but take real action in order to tackle these problems. So Impacto became a community mostly of youth from different countries in the world. Right now we are around 30 people. It would be great if you join. And our purpose is to not only raise awareness, but motivate people to take real action to mitigate problems that happen globally that are associated with the SDGs. So if you want to join Impacto or know a little bit more about us, here are some QR codes for our Instagram and our website. We post mostly in Instagram, like our website. It's more to know general information. And if you want to join us, just send us a DM by Instagram, and we'll surely answer, and you'll become part of the community. So I'm going to pass it now. Okay, so as we said before, the main topic of this panel is civic participation for better future. So I'm going to start by that, and why is it important that civilians participate in futures thinking. So as we all know, global problems are having bigger consequences every time. We have, for example, climate change. It's the best example for this. Climate change is a natural phenomenon that would happen naturally even if humans didn't exist, but for human activity, because of human activity, the consequences of climate change have been growing bigger and bigger. And in order to tackle these and more problems, it is necessary that the action we take grows bigger too. There are already governments, organizations, enterprises that have strategies to tackle these problems, but we need individuals to act with individual actions or participate in projects, raising awareness in order to be able to tackle these problems. But there is a situation about this, and it's the lack of motivation. People usually know that there are problems happening globally that are affecting humanity. For example, for social media, a lot of people know what climate change is, but there is lack of motivation. People don't usually feel that motivation to take action for these problems. And here are three concepts mentioned by two authors called Popsell and Shorter that explain the lack of motivation. So Pluralistic ignorance and diffusion of responsibility are pretty similar. Just imagine that you're in a place where there is a lot of people, but and there is one problem. But so pluralistic ignorance is when no one acts towards that problem because there is a lot of people. And diffusion of responsibility is when people say like, oh, there's a lot of people here, someone else can do it. And at the end, no one solves that problem. And finally, the relationship between costs and rewards. People usually don't take action because it has high costs or low rewards. For example, that's why some people don't like to volunteer, because sometimes volunteer programs have costs and low rewards and that type of stuff. So right now, before I tell you a little bit about how we motivate people to participate in our projects, I would like you to scan this QR code and tell your ideas or what you propose in order for people to be motivated to take action. So I'm going to wait a little bit for the scanning, and then I'm going to share the other screen to see the results. Of course, for this, we are not only going to teach you, but from this, I think we're learning a lot. I would say that when you share your ideas here, it would really work, for example, for Impacto, in order to motivate people, in order to motivate people to participate with us in projects, and not only for us to teach you like what we do. So now I'm going to change the screen and share. 1 second. And share the screen where we're going to see the results. Oh, 1 second. Okay. Okay, great. Now I can see lots of participation here. Of course, okay, so here you can write what you think, how we can motivate people, but here we ask the question as, what makes you feel motivated to take action? Because this would really work so much too. So for example, here I see others motivate us to take action. Obligation, of course, that happens sometimes. Thinking about the future, there are a lot of things here. Family, leaders, agencies, the impact we have in other people, having a goal. That's really great, having a goal. I would say that's one of the things that motivates me the most to take action, like having a goal and reaching it. Youth, happiness, rewards. Okay, I can see rewards as like the biggest word here. And that's one of the things that I'm talking about after this. Okay, curiosity. Okay, I think it's really great. Happiness, goals, pain. Okay, a lot of variety here. Okay, I think it's great. So there are a lot of opinions here, and they are great. I'm going to take them into account for future projects. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we motivate people to participate in our projects. Okay, so people usually feel motivated in 3 different ways. First of all, intrinsic values, which is like the minimum case, because not a lot of people have this. Intrinsic values are, for example, altruism or self-esteem. So people take positive action towards problems just because they want to, because they like it. But there are also extrinsic values. Extrinsic values include, for example, rewards, which you were mentioning before, and social judgment. Why social judgment? Because when I help someone, people usually say like, wow, you're a good person. That's great. So people feel good about that. And finally, the personal impact that has taking a positive action. For example, professional interest. If you're, for example, receiving a certificate for volunteering in something that would help in your professional field, civic participation, just civic participation, it's a great way to motivate people because people like to socialize and talk to others, know new cultures. For example, we are right now 57 people in this call, and this is all civic participation. We're interacting and people like that. And finally, the skills that people might acquire after taking a positive action. So now I'm going to talk about impact specifically. We have done a lot of little actions, specifically in Medellin, Colombia, that is, which is where I live. But we have taken like our biggest actions in Medellin, Colombia, Marrakesh, Morocco, and Nagpur, India. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one of these. But first of all, we tried that all our projects, and they always do, like achieve one of the SDGs. The ones that are like in like dark are the ones that we haven't treated yet, but just in 3 projects we have achieved like a lot of SDGs, and that is like our main goal. So let's talk first about the project we did in Medellin, Colombia last year, which is called Emprendiendo en las Calles. Emprendiendo en las Calles was a project that consisted of 3 sessions in which we gave classes about innovation, entrepreneurship, business development to street dwellers, people who live in the streets that most of them didn't have like a professional education. We had around 20 participants in this, but the impact was in a full city because these people are not only learning how to develop their businesses, but helping the local community. Here is a video of one of the participants in this project, one of the street dealers, and the video is in Spanish, but here is like a little summary of what he says.
Mi nombre es Richard Hernández y hoy me encontré un proyecto que se llama Impacto. Aprendí muchísimo a trabajar en equipo con las personas que de pronto tienen proyectos muy similares a los míos. Y hay proyectos de personas que tienen la capacidad de ayudar a los demás y de compartir con nosotros, habitantes de calle. Y pues gracias a Impacto, gracias a las personas que vinieron hoy y nos dieron la charla para avanzar. Mi nombre es Richard Hernández.
Okay, so that would be the project. It's like a lot of summary, but that's the project that we did here in Medellin. Second, the project we did in Marrakesh, Morocco. This one was completely online, but it still had an impact, specifically in the SDG number 3, good health and well-being. This project was called Reaching Morocco's Heart, and it started after the earthquake that happened in Morocco last year in September, where there were a lot of bad consequences. A lot of people had to leave their homes, family members died, and this kind of stuff, which was really bad. And so from Impacto, what we did is that we had 5 live sessions with students from a school in Morocco, and we gave them support. It was really simple. We just shared experiences, we talked to them, and we were there to hear them. In this project, 3 countries participated. First of all, Morocco, of course, Colombia, and India. And we had an impact in around 100 students because we did 5 live sessions, and there were around 20 students in each session. And here's also a little video of Moroccan students that participated in this.
I'm always really so thankful to know that there are people who help us during hard times and people who help each other in general. It was a pleasure to know about your culture, face-to-face and personally. We love to do this again in the future since we have a lot to share. And thank you. I'm always really
Okay. And finally, the project in Nagpur, India. This project hasn't been finished. It's what we are doing right now. In this moment, I just, like a few hours ago, I was in a meeting with them. And in this project, we are following 4 stages, 4 steps, in which we first discovered or identified a problem in India, in Nagpur. We already finished that, and the problem we chose is the spread of water guzzler trees, which is having a lot of consequences. The second stage would be to design a solution for that. We started that just today. Here are some pictures of some of the participants from it. We are doing this with a public school in India. After designing the solution, we are going to apply it. So the idea is that not to leave everything in the theory, but to make it real and implement this solution. And finally, the last stage is to make a review of what we did and see if this solution can be applied on a bigger scale. So for this, we have the participation of India and Colombia, and around 15 students are making part of this project. So from Impacto, that would be all. Here you have again the QR code for our website, the first one up here, and the QR code for our Instagram. It would be great if you join Impacto. The idea is that we grow our community and can have an impact not only in Colombia, in India, and in Morocco, but in other countries. So you're completely invited to participate. And yes, let's make the world great again, but together we need civic participation, we need individuals to participate, raise awareness, and take action. So now I pass it over to Juliana.
Hi, Sophie. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's a pleasure for me to have you here in the panel. So, and to meet you. So I'm going to talk about another case study in Medellin. So I work in a science center. The name is Parque Explora. And we also have an open maker space that is called Exploratorio. Because you come from different places in the world, like Turkey and Brazil, just to let you know, to imagine the size. So Parque Explora is the biggest science center in the country. We are visited by 700,000 people per year, so it's a huge thing. But today I'm going to talk about specific project that we did with vulnerable communities. So we worked with our neighbors, very important. We work with indigenous and Afro communities, with LGBT communities, with victims from the armed conflict, single mothers, and migrants. These are some of the most vulnerable communities in Colombia and in other places. So there is a need. So this whole conference is about futures. There is a very important, we need to think about the future in the global south. We need to think about the future in Colombia, in Brazil, in Africa. In Colombia, there are structural inequalities. So most of the people, they're just solving their immediate present, like, what am I going to eat today? Where am I going to sleep? What is my job? Do I have money? Rather than planning projects and go for the future. And as UNESCO points out, in this very complex world, with all of the challenges that Sophie mentioned and some others, we need to face it in a more inclusive way. We need to face it with the opinions and with the imaginaries of people from all around the world. So it's very important that we imagine the future, or the futures, not only from a northern perspective, but from everywhere in the world. So with this in mind, we decided to use, go ahead, Sophie, a methodology that we had used before, which are labs. And we decided to create last year something that we called Futures Labs. So before talking about the future, I'm going to tell you what a lab is. What is that we do in labs? So here there's a picture go ahead, of a girl. Okay, so right next to our museum, there's this neighborhood that has had many problems from the social point of view, from the economic point of view, because it was built on top of garbage, of top on the dump of the city. So people have had to move, and their immediate past has been filled with difficulties. So we worked with an artist, a very important artist, and we worked with the communities from Moravia, that is the name of the neighborhood. And what we did was an artistic project in which we drew the facades, like how the houses look like. We walked through the neighborhood. Each of the people in the group saw different houses, and they all did the houses. But this was not just like an art and crafts project. This was to understand how the houses tell the story of what has happened to the neighbor, and how the houses tell the story of the possible future of the neighbor. So this is something that we did, and this is an example of lab. Another example of lab, and I know you understand me in Spain, in Brazil, everywhere in the world, is that the world has been full of polarization in the recent elections, in the US, in Colombia, in Brazil. So we wanted to do something very political, like what are the young thinking? What are the writers thinking? What are the artists thinking? So we did this lab that was called El Dolor means pain, y El Deseo means to wish. So between what we wish and our pains. And we wrote a project. So the artist here was a poet, Manuela Gomez, a local poet. And there were 20 of us that participated. Here I'm counting myself as a participant because I was a participant. Some of us were writers, some of us were just like normal people going to a workshop. And we wrote a poem between 20 people to express our wishes and to express our pains in this election. So again, there was a topic, elections, there was an artist, and there were some people interested. And the last example I want to talk to you about is something that we did with this artist. His name is Oliver Tavares. He's a good friend of Exploratorio. And all of his work is with garbage. So he goes and sees what people throw. And then, you know, I don't know if in every city you have a place where they sell really cheap stuff that is considered garbage. So we went and we walked throughout the city, and we found the memory of the city and the history of the city in the garbage. And this was amazing. So this is another example where we have a topic or a search or a research, an artist, and a group of people that come together for something. So in all of these cases, there was a collective or an artist, there was a community, and there was a topic. And also in these cases, there was a technique. In the first one, we were doing the houses. In the second one, we were writing a poem. In the third one, we were collecting stuff like in museums, like museums that collect stuff. So we said, okay, why don't we do that, but with the topic? So we choose the topic to be the future. And we choose the communities to be the most vulnerable communities in the city. So this is where Future Labs was created. So we wanted to stimulate reflection in those communities, but in a perspective matter, like reflect, but because you're imagining some futures. We also wanted to imagine different future scenarios. And why? Like, why do we want to do this? We wanted to do this because so people felt more agency, so that they felt that they owned, in a way, the future or the futures, and they could make critical and informed decisions in the present. Okay, so we worked. These are some of the. Go ahead, Sophie. So this picture is if you want, go back a little bit. So this picture is with one of the groups that we worked. Amazing group. These are kids and teenagers, but mostly kids that come from Afro communities and that are environmental leaders in their communities. So like Sophie, that is magnificent leader, but is young. These are young Afro kids in Medellin. So here are some of the images of what we did. So I don't know if you understand Spanish. Rosa does, Sofia does. I understand, but I'm going to translate. So you see cine. Cine means cinema. So for some of the labs, the technique was cinema. So what we made was movies. For some of the labs, the technique was photography. For some of the labs, it was, oh my God, I forgot the word in English.
Ceramic?
Yeah, ceramic. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to Sofia. Ceramic. So in each of them, we had a different collective. So this was not just one artist, but a collective of people, many of them young people that work at technique. We had a vulnerable community, and the topic was imagining the future. So here, I'm not going to show you all of the results, but you can already imagine how rich the experience was, because we had a very difficult topic with communities that don't often think about the future, as I told you before, thinking about the future. So I'm going to show you, instead of showing you the results, I'm going to translate in English, go ahead, Sophie, some of the things that they said to us during these workshops. For example, the young Afro leaders, one of them said, I hope the future is a place where we all have equal opportunities and we can live in harmony. Then one of the women from La Honda, which is a neighborhood with very, very difficult conditions. These are older women. Most of them, they're victims from the conflict. Most of them, they have migrated to the city from other regions. She said, the fight against poverty and violence is a very big challenge. But in each act of solidarity and resistance, we dignify our futures. Then there was a very young leader in Granizal. This is the yellow one. These are leaders that have 16, 17, 18 years old, and they are part of a soccer team. They're great. I met them this week again. And they come from the largest neighborhood in Colombia, the neighborhood that has the largest amount of migrants that came to the city because of the conflict. So she said, my desired future is one where there is water, because here we don't have any water. Then another leader, an indigenous leader, said, for us, the future is to go back to the past, to our roots, to go back to our territories. Please continue, Sophie. Then another indigenous young leader said, we need to build memories in order to build futures. Then a young student, because we also worked in schools, he said, the future is conditions for a certain elite. They are the ones that make the decisions. They are the ones who influence the course of the world. They are the ones who decide what's going to happen to the life of the people. And also a woman from a leader's school, she said, the future is an uncertain horizon, but the resilience of Moravia communities, Moravia is the neighborhood right near us, against poverty, displacement, and violence is showing that we humans are strong. And then another young leader said, in 2040, I hope we're still there. So this is like happy, sad, mixed. This will probably, if you're like me, this gives you all the feelings. But this was very important because they had not had these conversations before. We also did this with some rural communities. Please continue, Sophie. And there we used the same lab technique to imagine the future of a region. And it was amazing because just as this panel, this was an intergenerational approach. And it was very hopeful what we found for the future. So the panel talked about skills. I don't know if you've heard about inner development goals. All of you have heard about the goals that Sophie mentioned before, but it is very interesting to talk about these inner development goals because they are more internal than external. They feel more like it's up to you. So in these workshops, we also focus on these goals, on some goals that are related to being, some related to thinking, some to caring for others and social skills, and some to enable change. I suggest you go to the UN UNICEF or UN, you just type like in Google, Inner Development Goals, and thank you, Rosa, very fast. And then you can find them. And just to finish, to wrap up, because I didn't have a lot of time, what did we learn? What are the challenges? So we promoted conversations, as you saw, some of them sad, some of them very reflective, some of them very profound, with audiences who sometimes think that the future is decided by others. We discussed, and this was not shown here, but if you want to know more about the project, welcome, you are welcome. We discussed important city issues. For example, the leaders from the neighborhoods, they spoke about land ownership. Wait. The participants from the indigenous communities talked about biodiversity conversation. Then the young leaders, they discussed the important issue of participation and participation in policies, etc. But this was sort of expected. But then also in the labs, there were some emerging topics that are very difficult topics in our region that emerged. And that was very interesting, like authoritarianism, implicit bias, the bias that some people have for the, the bias you can have for migrants, for race bias, all sorts of bias, and abuse. And this was a very difficult, these were very difficult conversations, and we didn't expect this, but this came out. And they also reflected that some contexts in our city with these vulnerable communities are still very difficult. And finally, there were an opportunity to train the trainers. So at the very beginning, we thought the collective was only there because they were going to like provide the technique, provide the art. But at the end, they were like thanking us, like, this was like the most interesting experience I've done so far. I learned so much from this. I want to work with you guys again. Because for them, they were not the target, but at the end, they learned a lot. So we learned as Explora, the collectives learned, and the vulnerable, the communities, the groups we work with, they also started talking about something they had not talked before. And some challenges is that the future is a very, very difficult topic. And some techniques, they worked really well. And some techniques, not really. They didn't allow us to discuss the future. Also, we did an evaluation process with I can share with you in another scenario. And some of the IDGs were threatened, but for example, the social ones, but not all of them. And finally, the success of the methodology was very group dependent. For example, if the group came from a same neighborhood, or if the group had already something in common, like the girls who played football, then the results were really good. But if the group was like a fake group, in the sense that we put together people that are not normally together, the results were less interesting. So these are things that we're looking at in order to design the next workshops, the next labs. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This both stories are so full of detail, and you've given us a lot to think about. And I think there's probably a lot of people who have stories that they want to share and questions that they want to ask. So I will ask people to put into the chat if you have any questions. And while we're waiting for questions to come up, if we could go back to presenting screen, Sophia. I've written down a few things that sort of were a collection of lessons learned, and would love to hear what you heard in this. So civic participation for better futures. What are some of the techniques that you have seen used? What are some of the motivations that you have seen people get involved with? What are some of the topics that people are gathering around? And we also talked about the Sustainable Development Goals, or Sophia talked about the Sustainable Development Goals, and Juliana introduced the Inner Development Goals, which may be new for some of you. So I'd love to, hear from you now. Does anybody have any questions or stories to share? Yeah, Louise.
Boom. So I think that this project was very cool. So muy bueno, and I think that for me, when I think about civic projects and civic participations, an example is near my home. There's like a small green area, and I think it's like 2 times a month, me and some people from my block, from my street, we go there and like clean this green area. And I think that this is how we should do. So try to do something like locally, because if many locals do something, then it's like a global action, and yeah.
Yeah, that's completely true, because like we don't need to participate like for example in a project that it's happening in the other side of the world, but if we have an impact in our local community, if every person has an impact in the local community, that's a huge change. That's great.
Thank you. What are
I'd like to comment something.
please.
The world in general is going through a turbulent, a cloudy time, and it's been difficult to see hope in people. No, even imagination is going, lower. Atrophy of imagination, and this is very intensified by media. Media systems replicate what is bad, amplify what is negative. So there are big challenges for sure. But listening to you three, brave women, dreamers, lovers, committed to the common good, to the people. So I see light. I see light on the horizon. And I believe in the dreams capacity. If you can dream, you can make it. So what a beautiful project. Inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to say something that is related to that. So last year we worked with these young girls from Granizal, which is the neighborhood that has the most migrants, local displaced people in the country. So we were with women, there are 2 generations. We were with older women. We went there this week with all of my team, 30 people. We went there. It's a 2-hour drive, walk, bus from where we live. And we were there and we were talking with the old generation women, all of them victims from the conflict in Colombia. All of them were displaced from their original place. But when I came back to my home in the afternoon, I had this feeling, and with very difficult stories, very difficult stories. But still, we went to this place where 800 young girls have played football and have become leaders, have done a school of leaders. We went to this place where this old generation woman did a museum about their own experiences. And I came down and I was, of course, moved by the stories. But I think I was mostly hopeful, because if it was very hard for them. They had the most difficult lives. And now there's this place it's called Hope and Peace, the place. So if they, who had the most difficult stories, who had to move from the villages to Medellin, who their own daughters and granddaughters have difficult stories too, if they can build a place for hope and peace, and they can start training young leaders, I mean, that's hope, because they have the most difficult stories. So I came down in the metro bus car, because it was super far away, and I felt a lot of hope because they were able to overcome many things. So I know, for example, the things I shared, some of them are tough because when you start talking about stuff, difficulty comes. But still, there's hope. So I agree with Rosa's comment, and I just wanted to share that story that happened on Tuesday.
While you're speaking and sharing, I am posting in the chat some very good, very important information about to get the certification, the certificate of this session. You can please fill the survey and go to visit to our website, our references to get the sample video that we are launching. So stay tuned with the chat. I'm posting some references. Okay, we have 10 minutes left, and we are pleased to listen more.
It would be great if you participated. Like, we want to hear you too. We want to hear similar experiences, projects, because something I didn't mention, but I think it's really important, and it's like one of the main focuses of Impact the Community is the SDG 17, which is partnerships for the goals. Like, we need civic participation, but it is easier to have this civic participation when we work together, when we make alliances. So yes, we want to hear you too if you have participated in any projects that involve civic participation, be them volunteering programs or your ideas. So yes, Leonardo, you can go.
Oh, hey, I know this isn't much, but I am a Boy Scout. I do many things for Umuarama. My troop's Phoenix from Umuarama. Sorry. But yeah, it isn't. We do some charity events. We did one to raise funds for the troop, and we collect a lot of trash from around the city. So yeah, we try to help in some ways.
Thank you. Gustavo. Oh, you're muted right now. We would love to hear you.
There we go. So yeah, I love the projects, and by the way, I met Juliana and Martin during the pandemics, and so hi Juliana, nice to meet again.
Hi.
And prior to the so yeah, congrats for your great work. But prior to joining the Teach the Future, I've been working with design thinking since 2008 when I was living in Canada, and then I came across another NGO called Design for Change that started in India, and similar to Teach the Future, empowers not with futures literacy, but with design thinking youth in order to be agents of change. So I would also recommend. I believe that the website, if it's still the same, would be dfcworld.org. I will look it up and post in the chat. So I would also recommend, besides Teach the Future, to also try look it up on Design for Change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Juliana, what projects are you thinking of doing next?
So when I went there on Tuesday, I think we're not only due to the evaluation, but also because of what we saw. We're doing labs again, but probably they're not going to be about the future, but there's a big chance they're going to be about displacement and migration. I don't know what the good word for that is in English. People that move from a place to another, because that's a big issue in our country, and also because Exploratorio, our public experimentation lab, it's going to talk about migration for 4 months. So so I think we want to like dive deeper in a specific topic, in a specific thing that's interesting, and I think we will do that. We're also doing very interesting, like I'm just going to mention 3 things because I do many things, but just to mention like 3 that are a little bit related to this. In educational programs, we think that it's very important to work with families. So many people work with students, with teachers, with principals, etc. But often they forget the families, and it's so important to work with families. So we started a project where we work with families, not only in stuff related to learning, but also in stuff related to bias, for example, and motivation. And if you know South America, and I think this is also true for Brazil, there are many houses or homes where either there's a single mother that does everything, or if there's a mother and a father or a different setting, there's a stay-at-home mother. But often mothers, they are not considered by, like, they're like if they didn't exist, like nobody talks about them, nobody. So with this project with families, which 90% of the participants were moms, we realized that there's so much power in either single moms that have a family and take care of their kids, but also in stay-at-home moms that take care of the kids. There's so much power in Colombia and Latin America. So we want to start doing projects with them to see, to teach them things, but also to learn for them, but also for them to be replicators of the things we're doing together. And finally, the last thing I will mention is that with some communities that are vulnerable, we have worked with processes like the one I showed you here, but some communities we've never worked with them. So there's a very important process that we do that is called Open Doors. And it's to understand that museums or science centers are often places where people feel that they don't belong, and that's our fault. So we want these places to feel as welcoming and as open as we can. So we continuously do a project that is called Open Doors, where we open the doors to communities that have never been here before to the museum, but we also understand why they have not been here. So I think that's also a big step because, for example, last year in November, we did something with people that live in the streets, that like clochards in French, and I don't know, remember the word in English. And it was very interesting, very difficult, but very interesting. So this year we want to do something with them, but a larger process. Yeah, those would be 3 ideas out of 20. I don't know.
Okay, so we are reaching the end of our time. Thanks for celebrating the World Future Day with us. We're very happy to have had such a deep and important conversation, very emotional, very touching. Thanks for coming, Maggie, Sophia, and Juliana. We want to thank you, and please stay here if you can, because the next session will be a good, very good session too. There will be new facilitators and conversations happening on the hour. In the chat box, again, please see the references, the survey that you can fill in and get the certificate for your participation. You can fill out. And to receive the videos, also the activities based on the playbook of Facilitating the Future, you just go to the website I put there, and have a very, very happy future, not only today, but for the whole life. Thank you for coming. Bye.
Thank you, Rosa. Ciao.
Thank you very much.
So, Lisa, are you the next one, the moderator?